You're listening to Dream It, Do It with The Masters, your guide to everything you need to know to get ahead in the creative sector.
Welcome to the Dream It, Do It podcast, Joanna. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So I just wanted to start off with your background and how you got into the beauty industry.
It was a little bit of a roundabout way of getting into the beauty industry. I've done a few different things in my time, but when I was at high school, I actually did my work experience at, I think it was Ali Lucas at the time, so another beauty school. I don't know why I decided to do my work experience there. I should have just gone into like a beauty salon or something, but I decided to do it there. And I really had a lot of, I really had a massive interest in makeup and skincare and hair. And I thought I probably wanted to do makeup or hair. After I did that placement, I was kind of like, I don't know about that. And then I finished school and I actually went and studied journalism. But while I was at uni, I went and worked part-time for a cosmetic doctor in a skin clinic and obviously had to do all of the skincare training and become familiar with the treatment so that I could speak to patients on the phone. And then from there, I worked for another cosmetic doctor and then I worked for plastic surgeons and then I went and worked at Adore Beauty and then I studied my advanced diploma of cosmetic dermal science. And that's when I became a dermal therapist and now I'm here.
And so with all the work experience that you had, were you the one reaching out to these placements asking to work there part-time or like get experience and stuff like that, or did they reach out to you?
Yep. So the first job I landed while I was at uni, I just randomly applied for it. It was advertised and I was like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. And it was really close to home. It was like around the corner from my house. I was like, perfect. That's great. Went and worked in there. And as I was there, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And then I moved to Adelaide for a period of time. And once I got there, I was like, I want to stay in this industry because I know what I'm talking about now. I'm familiar with, skincare. I'm familiar with treatments. So I went and got a job with the cosmetic doctor in Adelaide. I reached out to them, like cold called, and I was like, "Are you looking for anyone?" And at the time, they didn't have anything advertised.
That
they
takes
gave
a lot
me a
of
job.
confidence to just cold call. So I feel like people nowadays, they don't want to call. You just put yourself out there and you're like, I'm going to take a bet and see what happens.
I just called them. I was like, this place is close to home as well. I'm just going to call them and see if they've got anything available, and they did. And so I worked there for a year, and then I finished my journalism degree while I was in Adelaide, and I moved back to Melbourne, and again saw another job advertised for a group of plastic surgeons. And I thought, okay, this is actually working out quite well for me. I'll just continue on this journey. And so I was doing their marketing and content. And then when I left there, I went to Adore Beauty. And again, it was just something that I saw advertised. I went and had an interview with them. And at that time, it was a part-time social media assistant role. And I was like, oh, I've kind of already been a coordinator. Like, do I want to go backwards? Maybe I'll just do this temporarily until something better comes along, or just see what happens. And then I ended up being there for like 8 years.
Because you were working with a lot of plastic surgeons, did you want to get into that area of beauty, or was it the journalism part that like stuck out more, or the marketing side?
I didn't intentionally set out to end up in plastics or cosmetics, really. It just kind of happened that way, that it was a natural progression, I suppose, from the roles that I'd had. And then I developed this interest and expertise in that too, that I felt confident enough in a marketing perspective to talk about those things. And so I was obviously hired because I had an advantage over other people that had a marketing background. Because they were like, oh, she's already worked for cosmetic doctors and surgeons. That's perfect. And she's got, this marketing
and
content
niche.
ability. And so it ended up just happening that way. But I didn't really have a preference either way. When I started out doing journalism, I was like, oh yeah, I want to be a reporter.
It was completely separate from the beauty.
Yeah, completely separate from beauty. And then I went and did like a placement at Channel 7 and I was like, absolutely not.
Really?
This ain't for me. Yeah, it was too stressful. I was like, I can't do the whole like piece to camera and then go back to the station and then do all the voiceovers. It was just too much for me. I was like, no, I need a longer lead time. This is not for me.
Not for you.
And while I was at uni, they actually said to us, this is a dying trade. Journalism's not going to be a thing anymore. Print journalism's dead. You're going to have to find another job. And I'm there paying for my degree, being like, oh my God, what am I going to do after I finish this? Obviously, socials didn't exist at that time. I'm a little bit older, 32. So when I was going through uni, Instagram had just started. So there was no such thing as an influencer. And there wasn't social media really that was being used as a marketing tool. So now we're here.
And then at least you put the journalism and the beauty together when you moved to Adore.
Yeah.
Because you were doing beauty journalism at that time.
Exactly.
And is that what really sparked your interest in just zoning in into that industry.
Yeah, yeah. I think the more that I took on at Adore Beauty, I obviously started in socials there, and then the beauty editor at the time who was writing all of the content left. And so I actually moved into her role, and I was working then full time doing the socials and their blog platform, which was called Beauty IQ. And then a couple of years after that, we decided we were going to do a podcast because podcasts were just kind of beginning at that stage. This was mid 2019, so pre-pandemic. And we decided actually let's do a podcast. This could be interesting. Let's just see what happens. It could be a fail, but we'll just see whether it kicks off.
YOLO, see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And we had, a fairly big email audience. And so it was an easy thing to be able to market to our current audience and consumer. So we did it. And that was another way to use my background in journalism, I guess, or my knowledge of broadcasting.
Yeah, so you already had experience in that. So it was pretty easy for you to like slide into that.
And already felt confident, in front of a microphone and in front of a camera.
Yeah. And how do you think the beauty industry has changed since when you first started to like how you are now?
So much. It's a completely different landscape. I feel it's so oversaturated. There are people that think they're experts online that are not. There's a lot of greenwashing. It's a very, very different landscape to what it was, where previously we leaned on, people like dermal therapists, dermatologists and doctors to give us that information. It's now you probably take advice from a random on TikTok more than you would from
like an influencer on TikTok.
So I think that's definitely changed the landscape quite a lot. That's not to say that I don't think there's a lot of really knowledgeable influencers and creators online. I think it's been a really great way for the consumer to learn more about their products and also to discover new things. But sometimes I think that can be a bit of a negative as well.
Yeah. So what is one thing you like about the beauty industry, how it is now, and what's one thing you don't?
One thing I like about it now is that it's way more accessible. And I think that point of entry to skincare is a lot easier. We've got brands like The Ordinary where you can buy in at such an affordable price point and understand your skincare a little bit clearer before you then invest in more expensive products or more advanced formulas. So I think a lot of people want to see results before they make an investment, and I think a brand like that really allows you to do so. So that's something that I really love about it. Something that I don't like about the industry, probably that there's just a new brand being released every week. Yeah, and I'm always asked whether I'll do a skincare range, and I'm like, no.
Oh, really? Would you want to?
No.
You're like, not for you.
I've got enough brands that I work with and that I partner with all the time on socials, and I feel like they nail it. And I don't need to add anything additional to the market. I would probably consider working with one of those existing brands on a product to build out their range if there was something I felt was missing from their range. But I don't think it would be necessary for me to build out a whole new skincare brand.
But so what does authenticity mean to you in the beauty industry?
I think honesty is really important in this space, and kind of aligning people's expectations with what's possible. A lot of people assume that they might be able to do certain things with topical skincare, and to me it's really important to communicate that that's not always the case. So recently we spoke on Stylish, our podcast, about acne scarring, and someone was asking, what at-home tools can I use to get rid of my acne scars? And I'm like, none. There isn't any that you can use to get rid of acne scars, because it's going to require several different treatments. You might need to have certain topicals in your routine. Like, it's way more complex than what
just
people think. There's no easy fix to something like that. So I'm really open and honest with my audience, especially, and even more so with my own clients when it's just us talking one-to-one. But I think that honesty is really important to maintain your authenticity and integrity. I'll only work with brands that I use and love, and I think that's a really big hurdle to jump over when you're creating content, is that a lot of people assume that it's a cash grab, and it's not for me. I will not work with certain brands or products, and I'm very specific about that. Very, very selective with who I work with, and it's only brands that I really trust and love and have a relationship with.
Do you try out the products before you?
Always. Always. Strict minimum 4 weeks of trialing a product before I will even mention it. So I'm very specific about that.
How do you tell them that the partnership's not gonna work if you don't like the product and stuff like that?
So I leave that up to my manager.
You're like, I'm gonna let her do it.
I communicate that with her, and then she'll feed back to the brand. But I have brands that will come back several times and be like, "Oh, you sure? Like, did she really like this? This is what we're offering." It's a no.
Yeah.
No, I value my own integrity over any amount of money that they can offer me. I'd rather my audience still trust me. That's what's most important to me, and that's what's most important to my growth and my brand is that my audience trusts me. I can't pay for that, you know?
And what has been like your favorite skincare products that you have used?
Ooh, that's a very difficult question.
The first one that comes to mind. I know there's a lot out there.
I always say like my one true love has to be ASAP skincare because it was the first range that I worked with. So the first clinic I went and worked with had ASAP, and it was the first skincare, cosmeceutical skincare that I used and saw major results with. And so I still use the Super B complex to this day. I really love Medicate, SkinCeuticals, Osmosis, Bioderm. CeraVe do some great products as well.
Love CeraVe.
I feel like The Ordinary do some great products too.
Yeah.
Who else do I love? I'm just trying to think what I'm using at the moment.
Yeah.
I do love quite a few things from Rationale. Yeah, I've got quite the collection.
The collection
as you can probably
of skincare.
imagine.
That's like the dream goal, to have like a nice skincare collection when you open that bathroom window. And
It's
you
not
see
always
it.
nicely displayed though. It's often a
It's all over
mess.
the bathroom.
Yeah. But like part of my job is trying these products so that I can give my clients recommendations because I'm making recommendations from so many brands and from so many different price points. It's important for me to know what's on the market, and that's probably my thing that sets me apart from going into a clinic, for example, is that I have all of this experience over different brands and different price ranges. And, you know, you can buy a lot of the products that I recommend to my clients at Priceline or Chemist Warehouse rather than having to go into a clinic.
Yeah. And you also do consultations online and everything like that?
Yes.
What is the most common skin concern for Gen Z?
Oh, for Gen Z, it would be acne. So I see a lot of clients with hormonal acne, post-pill acne is a really big one. So that'd be the key thing that I'm seeing in like a younger client. As my clients get closer to their 30s, I'm seeing a lot of sun damage, a lot of pigment, a lot of melasma. Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on, I know a lot of take Accutane to deal with a lot of the acne scarring. Do you think that's a good option to choose if you're trying to do those skin concerns?
Yeah, sometimes it's a really necessary road to go down.
Yeah.
It's not something that I often jump straight to, but I have obviously consulted clients where I've recommended that and that we're not going to go down a topical route. It's too significant at this stage and we need to minimize the chance of scarring as much as possible. And so that would be the best route of action. And I would go and suggest that you see your GP and then get a referral to see a dermatologist. But it's not always, you know, the first thing that I jump to.
Yeah.
Some clients will go on Accutane before it's really required and they haven't really tried the topical route, or they're using the wrong things in their routine and not seeing results. So sometimes that alteration to their routine can be what prevents them from needing to go on a medication like Accutane.
Yeah.
So having that conversation with an expert can be really helpful when you're going through that process of trying to figure out, like, is this actually going to be right for me? Do I want to go through, you know, any of those side effects that might come with Accutane, which can be, you know, significant dryness, etc. So I do recommend for clients that are kind of to and fro a little bit, or they don't know whether they're quite at the stage where they would need Accutane, to go and speak to an expert that can give them some advice, especially around the topical side of things before they go down that path.
Yeah. Can you explain the topical treatments and skincare that might be talked through when you're talking to someone who has acne?
For sure. So first thing I would usually discuss would be the use of acids. So our BHAs, like salicylic acid, can be really beneficial. They're oil soluble, so they can get down into those blocked follicles and dissolve the debris that causes congestion and things like blackheads, closed comedones. We'll then discuss retinoids, which can be really helpful either in a prescription format, which obviously I can't prescribe because I'm not a doctor, but I can recommend that they go to their doctor to get a prescription for something like Retrieve, which is a prescription retinoid, or we can try topical retinoids, which are sometimes better tolerated and they can be in a formula with other beneficial ingredients. So a product that I recommend a lot for my acne-prone clients is the Osmosis Calm Gentle Retinol. It's got a lot of anti-inflammatory ingredients alongside the retinaldehyde component. So I find that is really well tolerated by clients that are experiencing a lot of inflammation, where we just don't want to add more fuel to the fire. So that can be a really good option for them. Azelaic acid is another big one, which is antibacterial and antifungal, antibacterial and anti-inflammatory. And so that can be a really good option either in a medicated version, which is available at pharmacies, or there's brands like Paula's Choice, The Ordinary, that do azelaic acid products, which is now available over the counter in Australia. Didn't used to be. Used to be pharmacy only until the end of last year, but that's obviously now available to us in Australia. And niacinamide's a big one as well, which is really helpful for really helpful for balancing oil production and refining the appearance of pores, helping with discoloration that might be left behind after acne as well. So they're probably my key actives that I would speak to a client about. And if they're not already using those, we would try and put them into the routine in some way.
And would you also recommend treatments to
occasionally? Yeah, it depends on the individual. So sometimes I find that if they haven't been using the correct products, or I feel like there's heaps of room for us to improve in that way, then I'll just suggest for 3 months we stick to this topical routine, we see how we go, and then we can revisit treatments after that, whether we think that they're going to be applicable or not. Sometimes that might be chemical peels, it might be laser genesis, those kinds of treatments, but a lot of the time it is just starting with products, seeing how we go, seeing how their skin tolerates it and responds, and then we take next steps from there.
How long is the process usually?
3 months.
Okay,
I don't see any clients for a follow-up before 3 months.
Right.
Yeah. So I really want to see that full follow-through of them using all of those products consistently for an extended period. And usually by that 12-week mark, we're through any kind of purging that might have occurred as well. If we're dealing with acne-prone skin, we can really ascertain whether that product mix has been right for them and whether there is room to move or build that out a little bit more. If we're starting with a really basic routine, I won't give them all of those actives to start with because I'm just going to freak their skin out. But if I start with a few things and then we can build from there after that 3-month mark and gradually get them to where they want to be.
And if for those who are on a tighter budget, would there be products that could help them still
Absolutely
at a lower price?
Yep. So I do 3 budget tiers with my consultations. So I have my lowest budget, which would be brands like La Roche-Posay, Bioderma, The Ordinary, for example, CeraVe. Then I've got a mid-range, which is kind of like your lower-end cosmeceuticals. That might be like your Skinstitutes, ASAPs, Alpha H's, and then my Happy to Splurges, which is more your Medicate, Skinceuticals, Osmosis. So I've had a lot of experience over my years working in the industry and obviously working at Adore Beauty, training with all of these brands. And so I've got that historical, knowledge of those brands and what their offerings are to be able to pull from all different price points. And some clients might get, a more expensive retinol, for example, where I'm like, oh, I really want to see how you go with this particular product, but I've made the rest of your routine really affordable. So sometimes I'll work around their budget in that way.
Do you see a big difference between cheaper skincare versus the more expensive ones?
It depends. It really does. There are some great formulas out there at a more affordable price point. Price doesn't always mean that something is going to be more effective. It's all around the mix of products. And I don't feel like an all expensive routine, if your whole routine costs $1,500, that's not necessarily going to get rid of your acne. You might just be using things that are too strong, too active. They might be causing inflammation. You might have the wrong mix of ingredients. So it really is dependent on the lineup of products, not necessarily the price point of those products. And there are great formulas that can be created without a massive price tag.
And when is skincare too much skincare?
I think it's based on the individual. If you're impairing your barrier because you're just doing too much, then that's a pretty big sign that you're going overboard. I see a lot of clients that just buy absolutely everything they see on TikTok, and then they come to me and I'm like, okay, well, we're going to use like a third of these products. And they're like, oh, I thought you'd make it like more complicated. I'm like, it doesn't need to be. We just need to tick these things off. This is what your skin needs. You don't need all of these fluff products. I don't do fluff products. If they don't have a specific purpose in the routine and they're not actively doing something, they're not going to be in there. I don't care for them. I don't feel like that's where my clients should be spending their money. We should be funneling that budget into products that are actually going to do something. A lot of people are using unnecessary things in their routine just for the sake of having them in there. The more things you're layering on top of each other, the less effective those ones that are applied on top can be. They're not able to penetrate into the skin, so they just get wasted.
So what's the base skincare that everybody should have?
Cleanser, moisturizer, sunscreen.
That's it?
Yep.
And
only has to be a cleanser, moisturizer, sunscreen, and then we can build out from there. I do see male clients that are referred by their female partners. And so for them, I like to keep it really simple so I don't scare them off. And then I like them to see the results and then we can build out from there. So I'll likely, just give them a cleanser. I might give them one serum a moisturizer and a sunscreen, and I try to give them products that will absorb like straight away so they don't complain about feeling anything on their skin. So you can start off really simple and build from there. You don't have to go from, you know, a 3-step skincare routine to a 10-step. You don't ever have to go to a 10-step if it doesn't work for you. And a lot of my clients be like, I just prefer to keep it simple. I've got 3 little kids and I don't have time to spend doing skincare for 15 minutes in my bathroom at night. So I just want something that I can slap on. And in that case, I'm like, okay, well, here's what we can create for you. Here's what we could do if we had a little bit more time on our hands, but we can always work up to that. So that's always an option for us to discuss in a follow-up appointment.
Do you see a lot of difference between men and women's skin concerns when they come to you?
Yeah, so men naturally have thicker skin. They've got more sebaceous glands, and so their skin tends to be a little bit oilier, a little bit thicker. So typically in men, I find that they are a little bit oilier. They probably have more congestion concerns, enlarged pores, blackheads. I find that they generally have more sun damage as well because they're not as strict with their sun protection, and they also, a lot of them work outdoors, and so they're getting a lot more sun exposure than women are. So that's probably the major difference that I notice in their concerns. But I've recently seen a lot of men prior to their weddings. So they've been recommended by their partners who have seen me. And then they're like, oh, you've got this whole skincare routine. They've obviously had this conversation at home about you know, improving their skin ahead of their wedding. But that would be the key difference, is just that more oiliness, a little bit more congestion and texture on the skin, a little bit more sun damage.
Yeah. And that you brought up the wedding. So congratulations on the engagement. I wanted to ask, what is some treatments or must-do skincare that you have to do before the wedding?
I would say you don't have to do anything. If you're happy with how your skin looks, there's no need to go absolutely nuts before your wedding day and try all these new things. If you're happy with your skin, you've got no major concerns, stick with what you're doing. You don't need to have a whole overhaul. However, in my case, what I would personally do for my skin concerns and what I do regularly, I love pico laser, which is a photoacoustic laser, great for keeping pigment at bay and also refining texture and stimulating collagen production. I love laser genesis, which is great for, again, stimulating collagen production. Also really great for keeping redness at bay, which I've got rosacea, so that just keeps those symptoms completely gone. I do also really love Clear and Brilliant, which is a non-ablative fractionated laser. So a little bit of downtime associated with that one, but amazing for increasing glow. It just gives your skin such a beautiful like radiance after you've had this treatment. I really can't compare it to much else, but I really love my Clear and Brilliance and my Pico laser. They're probably my number one for brides.
And have you started going through the treatment process?
Yeah. I mean, I was already on the journey anyway because I do that already. So I really didn't have to like reassess what I was doing before my wedding. But yeah, definitely still having my regular treatments ahead of that.
And with that, what's your stance on preventative skin treatments for people in their early 20s?
From like an age prevention perspective, I have this conversation actually all the time with clients that are kind of in their mid-20s, and they'll be asking me about injectables and particularly around Botox and should I be getting preventative Botox. If you're a very expressive person and you're already starting to notice that you've got static lines, which are lines that are present on the face when you're at rest and not just when you're dynamic and moving, we're meant to have movement in our face. We're meant to have lines when we move it around. That's just the reality of, that's what your face should look like. And I always have that conversation, like that's quite normal. You don't need to be going to have Botox if you've just got a little bit of movement in your face. In those instances where you're starting to notice those fine lines, having dermal therapies that encourage collagen production and collagen remodeling in the skin, like our skin needling, laser genesis, even chemical peels can be helpful. Those kinds of treatments can really help your skin to be the best version of itself without the need for Botox. So I think starting those things in your mid-20s up until your late 20s, early 30s can really delay that process, but also prevent things or treat things like signs of sun damage, which is a dead giveaway for me. I can tell a face that has not looked after their skin in the sun and has just gone and had Botox. It's very easy for me to tell as an expert, whereas it's a lot harder to tell when someone has really looked after their skin in the sun. You know, they've worn their sunscreen, they've used their actives, they've gone and had other kinds of treatments to reduce, you know, those impacts of sun damage. It's a lot harder to detect other work when they've looked after their skin more holistically.
And what is one of the biggest misconceptions you see online about skincare?
One of the biggest misconceptions is probably that everybody needs to be using a prescription retinoid. It's just not true. A lot of skins can't tolerate prescription retinoids, mine included. My face would fall off. It just does not tolerate prescription vitamin A very well. You can use over-the-counter retinoids and still get really great results in terms of, stimulating collagen production and refining texture and all of those kinds of concerns, treating sun damage like hyperpigmentation. So over-the-counter retinoids can still be really beneficial when they're used frequently. You don't have to be trying to integrate something into your routine that your skin just can't tolerate. You're better off opting for something that is over the counter that you can use every night or every second night, every third night, rather than a prescription vitamin A that you can only tolerate once a fortnight and then you're peeling for the rest of the week. So it's better to opt for what your skin can tolerate and work within your means in that sense.
Why do you think people just jump straight to the prescription?
TikTok?
Yeah.
TikTok.
You see one thing on TikTok, you're like, yep, I'm going to do it now.
Yeah. Well, you end up down a rabbit hole, right? Because you watch one video about someone that swears by prescription vitamin A and you're like, I must have it. And then you end up in this spiral and then everyone's using it. And, oh my God, I must have this. But the reality is it's not for absolutely everybody.
How do you try to educate your viewers on your platforms about who to trust online and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I don't want to shit talk anyone and I don't want to bring anybody down in that sense. Like I don't go out there trying to correct other people's information because I'm like, someone else is going to do that for me. Like I know there are a lot of creators that are out there, with science backgrounds that are doing that, and that's great because it kind of sets the record straight. I just try and deliver as much educational and valuable information as I possibly can to my audience, and especially in one-on-one consultations, I'm providing a lot of that background as to why I'm recommending certain things for my clients so that they can then make independent purchasing choices in the future so that they know exactly what their products do, because a lot of people don't know what their products do and they don't know why they use certain things in their routine. And so giving them that knowledge and that background on why we've put an niacinamide in their routine can be really helpful when they go to repurchase a product. If they are interested in trying something else that I haven't recommended, at least they can compare the two formulas. Oh, okay, this one has niacinamide as well. Great. Okay, maybe I can swap that one out and opt for this. So I more just try and give them a little bit more independence and enough knowledge, I suppose, to make those decisions and feel like they don't have to be influenced by other noise that goes on around them.
There's a lot of like different products online, especially with celebrities coming out with their own line every week and things like that.
So many celebrities.
And sometimes they're actually really great.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like pick and choose which one is for your skin, especially if you don't want to drop, $100, $2 on a nice skincare that is recommended online, but then doesn't end up working for your face. So when clients come to you asking for like advice on what brands to choose from, do you kind of just go with what their skin concerns are, or do you give them your opinion on the brand itself?
If they are really tied to a brand, I'll give them like my thoughts around whether or not it's suitable for their concerns and kind of explain why or why not. Some clients with their routines, I'll leave existing products in their product lineup. If I think it's suitable for their skin and their skin concerns, it'll stay in their routine. Other clients will get an entirely new routine because nothing they're using is suitable.
Scrap it all.
Yeah. And so I will often explain that and why I've done that. A lot of clients will ask me my thoughts on certain brands, and that's something that I often do in like Instagram Q&As. They'll be like, oh, do you like Rhode, or do you like, TBH? Like whatever the brand is, they'll ask my opinion on it, and I'll be like, yeah, it's a great brand, or like, oh, I haven't used it and I'm not going to comment on it because I haven't used it. So a lot of the time I won't really make a comment unless I've had a personal experience with the brand or I know enough about the formulas. I'm not really going to say anything on it. But if I know enough about it and a client asks me about it or they want to stick to that and it's just not right for them, then we'll go through a bit of a process of why or why not that might be appropriate. And
you have a large social following platform with followers that trust you with your skincare knowledge, and you've now gone co-host on the podcast Stylish. How was it kind of transitioning into being into beauty and now basically influencer podcast host?
It's interesting because Stylish is technically like a mainly fashion podcast. And so when I was at Adore Beauty, I was doing Beauty IQ Uncensored, which was their podcast. And obviously that was completely beauty focused, which is my niche. And so when the opportunity came up to join Stylish and I was told it was a fashion podcast, I was like, I'm really out of my depth here. Like, I don't know, am I right for this? But then it kind of, as the concept developed, then it was like, oh, okay, it's actually going to be fashion, brand, business, beauty. And so I was like, okay, cool. I can do the business, I can do the beauty, I can kind of touch on brand as well because I've had that marketing kind of content background too. So I feel like I'm well positioned, but the fashion stuff is still, sometimes I get major imposter syndrome about that because I'm like, this is not my specialty. And I think on a podcast, people are expecting you to be the expert in absolutely everything that you talk about. The reality is that I'm not an expert in fashion. I love fashion, I love clothes, and I have a lot of like respect for the fashion industry as well. And so I do really enjoy talking about fashion. But the other girls, Annika and Mads, are much more experienced in their fashion side of things. But then I kind of bring the beauty and skin stuff to the table. So hopefully that kind of helps to bridge the gap in our audience. So
it started off as just a fashion and then moved into beauty business as well, or was it always supposed to be fashion beauty business?
So it was always meant to be fashion beauty business when we first kind of came across the concept, because it was developed by Shameless Media and then we were brought on as the hosts. I was just like, oh my God, I think this is going to be like more fashion than anything. And it is probably more fashion than anything. It's probably more fashion focused, but I've come to really enjoy that because it is a little bit of a break from beauty a little bit. While we do talk about beauty on occasion, it's largely, you know, brand and business and fashion. And I really love that kind of intersection of interests to talk about once a week, because the rest of the time I'm talking about skincare and beauty for the rest of my whole week. So it's nice to be able to, it's a nice balance of things that I'm interested in that I'm happy to talk about. But yeah, it can be a little bit of imposter syndrome at times, but from working at Adore Beauty, when we started doing Beauty IQ Uncensored, that's kind of when my social following started to grow a little bit more. And people obviously, you know, when you're on a podcast, they feel they know you to some degree. So you've got this parasocial relationship with people, which is quite an interesting thing to experience. But it's amazing that many people, you know, trust my opinion and they want to hear what I have to say. And it's a real privilege.
Yeah. And how do you guys choose the topics you have for the podcast? Like, do you just kind of have like a brainstorming session and just go with the best idea?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky to get to work with the Shameless Media team because there is a whole team behind the podcast and what goes into the podcast. So we have our producers and then we have us as the hosts as well. And so we kind of spend all week in our Slack channel sending articles and, you know, Instagram posts and things like that, because a lot of our podcast is around what's happening at that particular time in fashion, whether it's, you know, a creative director changing or, you know, a brand has sold. We'll be talking about those kind of topics. So it is very relevant to the now. So we're always sending things in that channel. We have a meeting on the Friday before we record on the Monday to talk about what that episode is going to be about. So it's kind of a mix of everyone coming together with their ideas and bringing it to life. But yeah, we're very lucky that our production team are so amazing and so knowledgeable and really help to bring that podcast to life. We definitely could not do it without them.
What has been the best topic for you that you've spoken about on the podcast?
On stylish? Oh, that's a hard one.
Is it more like fashion focused, or do you like having that beauty?
I do really like having the beauty, but we've done some really interesting like traced episodes, which is where we take like a person and we delve into their life. So that can be really interesting, or it might be like delving into a brand. We did a bit of a deep dive on Balenciaga, which I thought was really interesting. So those episodes I've really enjoyed doing. On Beauty IQ, probably the most impactful one for me was when we spoke to Natalie Fornazio, who was battling with melanoma, and she was only in her 20s. She's now unfortunately no longer with us, but before her passing, we interviewed her while she was going through her treatment, and she was so generous with her time and vulnerability to share that journey with us, you know, for the sake of awareness. And I got to know Nat personally, and obviously absolutely devastating to lose her to that battle as well. But what's the word I'm looking for? The awareness that she brought to skin checks and melanoma not being an old person's disease, the amount of messages I got after that episode, even years later, being like, thank God I listened to that episode because I went and got a skin check and I had a skin cancer. Yeah. And I had it cut out. And if I hadn't listened to that episode, I wouldn't have gotten a skin check and I wouldn't have known.
Not a lot of people do get skin checks.
Yeah.
I probably need to go.
A lot of people in their 20s wouldn't, right? But being in Australia, that's so important to stay on top of, especially the amount that people sunbathe in this country. And so, yeah, that was probably the most impactful podcast episode I've been part of to date because it had such a huge flow and effect to the people that listened to it. Yeah. And huge respect to Nat for sharing her story and allowing us into that personal battle that she was facing in order to help other people.
Was there like a specific quote or someone, I guess something they said that kind of stuck with you?
Oh, actually a funny one that Caroline Hirons, who is creator and skincare, expert in the UK. She's got her own range called Skin Rocks now. Back in the day, she didn't. And I remember we had this conversation. I was so starstruck to interview her because I just look up to her so much. And she said that wipes for festivals, flights and fannies only. That you shouldn't be using any kind of like facial wipes on your face. It's not going to remove makeup. It's for festivals, flights and fannies. And that's always stuck with me because we just pissed ourselves laughing after that.
So like baby wipes, not a good...
No, it's just going to move around product.
Yeah.
So you just want to be using either a micellar water with a cotton round to remove everything, or a oil cleanser first and then following with a cleanser of your choice, whether that be like a gel cleanser, foaming cleanser, milky cleanser, and then effectively removing your makeup in that way, because a wipe is really just moving things around. They can also be a little bit abrasive as well. So for sensitive skins, they're not ideal, and they'll often contain fragrance too. If you're sensitive and you're sensitive to fragrance, then they're probably not the best option for you either.
Yeah. Oh my God, I should throw my baby wipes out.
Absolutely. Bin.
What is a emerging fashion trend that has caught your attention? I know that we've talked a lot about beauty, but we're going to try put in some fashion in there.
I'm loving the resurgence of suede at the moment. Seeing suede absolutely everywhere. Obviously a lot of faux suede, which the funny thing about it is that I'm seeing a lot of like suede advertised, and then I go and look at the composition of the actual fabric and it's not suede at all. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well now the price point makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, loving all the suede at the moment. So I've got my eye on like a couple of little suede things at the moment.
Especially for winter, that'd be really
great. And being Melbourne based as well, you need something warm. Like actual real suede is really warm. So I had my eye on a suede coat when I was in France recently, and I didn't pull the trigger because like the conversion was just not working for me, and I still regret it. I should have just bought it.
You have to buy it if you love it in store. But it's just so
delicate as well. I'm like, I'm going to have to waterproof the whole thing and then be mindful where I'm sitting, because if something gets on it, then it's ruined.
Suede is very hard to take care of for a long time.
It is. So I don't know that it's going to be like the most long-lasting trend, just because of the longevity of suede. It can just get ruined so quickly if you don't take really good care of it. So I wouldn't say that it's like child friendly with kids running around, or like animal friendly for that sake, because I have a suede bag that I didn't waterproof in time before my dog's nose got on it, and now it's got these marks on it that I just can't get out. So that was my fault.
What's like a favorite fashion piece you've got in your closet right now?
Ooh, good question. Favorite fashion piece at the moment? Probably a blazer that I bought recently from a brand called Boobish. They're based in Adelaide, and they just have the most gorgeous like winter pieces. I always buy at least one thing from them every winter. So last year I bought this like faux leather kind of shiny cherry coloured bomber, and it's so cool. Every time I wear it, people compliment it, even men. Oh, great jacket, thank you. But this blazer that I got kind of cinches in at the waist. Again, it's just something that I get asked about all the time. Anytime I wear it, where's that from? Oh my God, where's it from? They just have those really like beautiful statement pieces. We call them show ponies, stylish. So yeah, I just really love those pieces that I can pair with like other basics in my winter wardrobe that will kind of stand out a little bit more, that I can add to an outfit and feel really like elevated. Yeah. So that's probably my favorite at the moment. They have this fringed coat that I really love the look of too, but I just do not need any more coats. So I'm
the wardrobe's getting packed.
Yeah. I just cleared it out and sold some stuff at Racket Club in Hawthorne. They do like a kind of circular fashion. It's they allow you to kind of list your products, you sell them there, and then you just obviously make whatever money you sell those products for. So it saves you having to do the markets and things like that, and Depop, which can sometimes be a bit time consuming. Yeah, but taking all the photos and listing it and then going to the post office, like I can't be bothered.
No time.
Time.
Is there anyone that you look up to in the fashion or beauty industry?
Yes. Caroline Hirons is one. I think she's in her 50s now, but she's just built her brand around being really honest and upfront. And she doesn't take any shit from anybody. And I love that. And I think that a lot of people have trust in her brand because of that. And she's since gone on to release a skincare range. And it's just really great to see a woman of her age, especially because I feel like women in their 50s are really underrepresented online. And so seeing someone that can communicate with that age range as well really effectively is really great to see. We don't see a lot of influencers in their even 40s and 50s. So there's no one speaking to that consumer. And I think she just does that so beautifully and also speaks to people of my age group and younger. So yeah, the way that she goes about her business, I just really love. Katie Jane Hughes is another one that I really love too. It's just a lot of education. Just her makeup tips are so accessible. She's not too elevated, but she's not, you know, too basic. She's just really like sits in that middle range there. She was just on tour with Dua Lipa. I think she still is. So she was her makeup artist for her whole tour. And so she was traveling with her, and she just does such a great job of education and making it really accessible to people that maybe don't know a lot about makeup but really want to elevate their makeup. She just makes it so easy to follow along with what she recommends. So
and is it all through like social media?
Yeah. Yep. She just creates content and she's really just honest. And again, I think that's why I feel like that's what I owe my audience is that honesty and being upfront with them, because that's what I love to consume. And so I want to be able to give the same value to my audience.
How do you balance life, work, making content creation and everything like that?
I don't. I really struggle to find the time to create organic content because I don't have a lot of spare time. So I do the podcast, I do my own business, which is my consultations, and that takes up a lot of my time. And then any extra time I have is like admin and creating content for brands. And so finding that time to create organic content is actually probably my biggest challenge at the moment, is balancing that and trying to give enough value to my audience, because there's no point creating sponsored content for them if you're not also delivering stuff that isn't paid for. And like, I will only work with brands that I obviously naturally use and love, and will only talk about them in a positive light because I have experience with their brands. But you've got to create enough organic content to kind of keep your audience staying there for the value that you provide as well outside of sponsored content. So that's a real juggling act for someone that has 3 jobs.
So would you say someone wanting to start their own business in beauty that creating a social platform is really important?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would not be able to do my job or have my business as a full-time venture if I didn't have socials to leverage that. So a way that I market my business organically is through socials, just showing what, you know, results my clients have gotten. I'll talk through why we did what we did with their routine and what we added to their routine without, you know, disclosing absolutely everything that we've done. Obviously, I want to maintain a level of like confidentiality with the client. They've paid for the consultation, you know, I don't want to be giving away that information for free when they've paid for it. So trying to organically advertise my business, but also to show what good skincare can do. So my social following is crucial to being able to run that business for sure.
So if someone didn't have a client base yet, what's some pieces of content they can start creating to be like a show initiative and that they have that information to give out?
I think if they're really confident in a certain area, like if you are beauty based and you're working in a clinic that maybe has, you know, they do waxing and lashes and then they also do skin, and you want to specialize in skin and that's the direction you want to move in, hone in on that with your content. Can you potentially show you doing some treatments without getting your client in it? Like get permission from your boss to film, or ask that client, or do another staff member's treatment for them and start showing those treatments. So I think that's a really good way to start, where you're naturally doing that thing anyway. You don't have to cut out that time to do it. You can just be filming yourself doing that consultation, chatting through the treatment if that person's happy to be filmed, and then you're getting that content captured anyway. You can cut that up and post that, and then you're starting to get some content out there without having to feel like you've got to speak directly to camera. I feel like it's also a lot easier to do voiceovers to start with rather than speaking directly to camera. It takes a bit of skill to speak to camera if you've ever tried to do it. A lot of people think it's very easy. It's not that easy
One
to
take,
do.
not happening.
So I think doing that voiceover allows you to record it a few times. If you've got the footage, then you can just write yourself a script, do the voiceover over the top, you got a piece of content. So I think it's just building up your confidence to be able to create content. It's certainly something that I'm still not completely confident with, and I do that for a living. So I think every person that creates content has imposter syndrome to some degree, or they think that, you know, their content is cringe or whatever it is. But the reality is I don't look at other creators' content and be like, oh my God, how embarrassing. Like I would never do that. I'm like, good on them. Great. Okay. They're creating content. Awesome. Like you can see how easy it is to go viral when you look at people on TikTok that create one video and suddenly it's popping off and they've got 10,000 followers.
Yeah.
It really is that easy on TikTok. It's such a discoverable platform. So I think if anyone is trying to start out, building Instagram is so much harder than it is on TikTok. So I'd probably do both.
Do you prefer one over the other?
Look, I'm naturally an Instagram girly because I'm older, right? So that's where I feel most comfortable in terms of posting content. But I also love TikTok because of the discoverability. And I do really like posting content on there because it's a totally different platform. It really is kind of just my audience unless it's making it to the explore page.
Yeah.
And then I might get a bit of traction, which I have before. I've had Reels go viral before. It's just not as common as it is on TikTok for me. Yeah.
I think it's with Instagram, you're nurturing the audience you already have.
Absolutely.
And then TikTok is where you get all your new
100%.
clients and everyone seeing you and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
The For You page, just doom scrolling.
Yeah.
The amount of things I see on my page. And with that, what do you have up and coming in the next few years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I honestly don't know. It's just ever changing. I wouldn't, if you asked me 2 years ago if I'd be doing a podcast with Shameless, I would have been like, what? That just came out of nowhere. It surprised me and I'm glad that I took the opportunity. It's been such a great experience. I'm just open to whatever comes my way. I do want to try and make sure that my education and the value that I can provide clients is, doing the most that it possibly can be. I'm hoping to be able to do some more virtual stuff, maybe offer some kind of course or masterclass of some kind. It's just finding the time to actually create something like that. I don't have a lot of planning time in the schedule at the moment, which I really want to try and do a bit more of because I think that's really crucial to business growth, is to find that time to create those extra little bits of the business that maybe mean that it can run on its own when you're not able to be fully immersed in the business. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm not tied to any certain plan.
Yeah. And for anyone who's starting out their career in the beauty industry or any creative industry, what's a piece of advice you would give to someone who's still a little bit unsure on what they want to do, what if they want to start a business, or what's the first step they can take to get into the right direction?
I think absorbing everything you can from the people around you. The beauty industry has a lot of knowledgeable people working in it, and I've worked with some really great, inspiring people that I've learnt a lot from. And probably my biggest challenge in my early 20s was just wanting everything all at once. I wanted to be doing absolutely everything. I wanted to achieve all of these things, and that's great to have ambition, but I couldn't have all of those things at that time because I wasn't quite there yet. And so I needed to go through the process of getting all of that experience and working my way up to that to be able to get to where I am now and do what I do now. And I look back on that and I'm like, I wouldn't have changed any of that. At the time I was frustrated. I was like, why can't I do all these different things? And why can't I grow at the rate that I want to grow? But it's gradual, and eventually you'll get to the point you're like, okay, well, I managed to get there in the end. But all of that experience is so crucial and matters so much to where you do end up. And I think your focus can change a little bit. You might have in your head that you want to do something in particular, and then, the goalposts change a little bit and you change your mind, or the industry can change. I think that's the thing about the beauty industry in particular. It's ever changing. And that's what I like about it, is that it's always something different's always happening. There's always new technologies. There's always, new ideas. There's always new products. And so I think that can potentially change where your goals might end up. When I was at uni, there wasn't influencers, there wasn't content creators. You couldn't get paid to do that. There probably wasn't people doing Zoom consultations. So it's a whole new world, I guess, 10 years away. So you might end up doing something completely different, but just absorb everything you can in terms of learnings from older people and more experienced people, because they can teach you a lot, and not just in what you're doing professionally, but how to conduct yourself and how to create relationships with people and how to maintain those relationships as well. That's all really important things to learn when you enter the workforce.
Yeah, perfect. And the fun part of this podcast is the quick fire questions. So I'm going to ask you a list of questions, and first answer that comes to your mind. Describe your dream bridal look: soft glam or effortlessly glowing?
Ooh, effortlessly glowing.
What's your go-to skin prep before a big event?
I just do my usual skincare routine. I'd probably make sure I was using niacinamide.
You're packing an emergency kit for your wedding day. What's one product that has to be in there?
Ooh, just in case I had a reaction of some kind, probably La Roche-Posay Cicaplast B5.
Okay, yeah. What's a past beauty trend you secretly loved at the time?
Secretly loved at the time. Ooh, probably like pore strips at the time. Like, but I'm
Really?
talking
The
back
ones
like
that, like-
2007 era. Yeah, like I would never now, but like back then it was like, oh, so satisfying.
Yeah. Finish of choice, matte perfection or a dewy glow?
Dewy, always.
Always. Wedding day lip, team red or team nude?
Nude.
Nude. What beauty rule do you love to break?
What beauty rule do I love to break? I'm a rule follower,
Rule.
honestly.
Stick to the rules.
Yeah, I don't think you'll find me breaking many rules in my routine, to be quite honest with you.
Facial massage or LED therapy?
LED.
LED. What's one skincare habit you wish more people took seriously?
Double cleansing.
Double cleansing.
Cleansing balm or oil first,
Yep.
followed by your cleanser.
Right. And what's the one skin myth you wish people would stop believing?
That sunscreen's toxic.
People say that.
Yeah.
Oh my
Everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, everyone's scared of sunscreen.
Right. Yeah.
It's not going to kill you. The sun will.
Perfect. So that comes to the end of the podcast. If you want to directly to camera shout out any socials.
Find me on socials. You can find me at Joanna Fleming, or if you're interested in a skincare consultation, you can find those at SkinForward, SKINFWD.com, and I'll happily chat with you about your skin.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.